Hi everyone. Thanks for attending CTFest 2021, the teacher event. So before we start, let's invite Prof Leong Hon Wai from NIE to give the opening remarks. Yeah, Prof Leong, please.
Thank you, Mr. Key. Very good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to CTFest 2021. For the local teachers here, thank you for taking time to come to this session despite your busy schedules. My name is Leong Hon Wai. I'm a professor in NIE of NTU. This CTFest is organized by colleagues at NIE, specifically Dr. Peter Xiao, Ms. Wendy Huang, Mr. Ki Sun Chi, and Ms. Ke Chin Lee, together with colleagues from the School of Computing of NUS, Dr. Bimnesh Wahak and Professor Leong Hon Wai, with support from the computing unit of CPDD. This event is supported by a grant from Google Data Center community administered by the Tax Foundation. So this is CTFest 2021. It's not the first CTFest. We had one 2 years ago, pre-COVID days. Some of you may have actually been to that event, held in July 2019, a place level 3, right next to Google, and some of you may have taken the opportunity to visit Google. At that event, more than 2 years ago, we had teachers sharing, we have industry partners, and then we had a good discussion on CT education. So today, 2 years later, we managed to have this event to continue the conversation on how to promote CT education in Singapore. Recently, we also, NIE held the CTE STEM conference. There's a teacher's track, and several presentations might also be relevant to you. I believe several of those presentations are available on YouTube. So if you're interested, contact us. So today's event is to continue our conversations on promoting CT education in Singapore. We have, I think, 2 segments of the event. First, we have teachers sharing from 6 or 7 teachers, and then followed by a panel discussion on provide support and resources for teachers in computing, CPA, or related subjects to teach better in the classroom, to have the resources to link with the latest trends. So let's get started. So we have the first segment, and I invite Mr. Ki Sun Chi to moderate the session for the teachers, as well as to introduce the teachers. Yeah, Mr. Ki.
Thanks, Prof Lee. Okay, so according to the program, we actually have quite a bit of sharing by teachers from the various subjects and SAM ARP areas. Right, so this is also the first year that we have increased or expanded the scope to reach out to non-computing subject teachers. Right, so first up, we'd like to invite a primary school, Montfort Junior, Mr. Norman No, and as well as Mr. Patrick No, to share about their CT innovation program. Right, yeah. So let's hear from them.
All right, just to check, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we can hear you also.
Okay. Sorry, is there a lot of feedback? All right, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction, G, and thanks for the uh, introduction statement, Prof. So this is sharing by Montfort Junior, and I would like to take this chance to just go through a short timeline. Okay, so this is the agenda of our presentation, and I'll begin with a short timeline of how computational thinking started off in Montfort Junior School. So 2015, we embarked on Code for Fun with IMDA, and during that time, it was just for a selected level. And within 3 years, so 15, 16 till 17, we decided to roll it out through a school-wide program. So therefore, in 2017, we have a program that would stretch from P1, primary 1 to primary 6. And currently now, 2021, and still in work in progress, is for it to feature in our main IP subjects, so to be infused into the curriculum in the main teaching subjects like EL, math, science, and so on. So just to take you a short walk through the makerspace, as is commonly known in many other schools, and in MGS we call it the Tinker Shop.
Hello, welcome to our makerspace. And play is educational. We want for juniors to play to learn, and we learn to play. Hello, welcome to our makerspace.
Sorry for that, yeah.
Educational. We want for juniors to play to learn, and we learn to play. Seriously, let's see what our goals are playing. Okay, are you playing with Robbie?
Not really. I'm using my creativity to try and solve a problem in the future. Look, I created a fruit catching machine. One day, when fruit fall from the sky, this machine will be able to catch them.
Jacob and G, you have learned to make an instrument using nature. Yes, on top of that, we have also learned to use design thinking to solve a problem. Wow, Jaden and Amos, what have you got here?
Make an interactive piece of art using microwaves. That's right. We also learn to use different tools we have to create a product.
Gareth, you having fun at the marble wall?
This is cool. I'm not just having fun. I'm experiencing potential and kinetic energy that my teachers taught me in science. Now I understand so much better what my science teachers were talking about.
Through play, our boys develop socially, emotionally, and connectively. The programs in Montfort Junior School is future-centric and provides an authentic learning experience for our pupils.
All right, so the guiding principles behind many of the programs that we run in MJS stems from these three area here, which is being value-centric, boy-centric, and one that was mentioned earlier in the video by Mr. Zain is being future-centric. And I think computational thinking would lend itself very comfortably in the area of being future-centric. So along the sharing, after we move off from this very wordy presentation here, you'll get to see many of the programs in pictures and in videos. Do note how either one, if not all of these three guiding principles are featured in the program. So two big areas that we try to categorize our activities in the school. If it's a short summary from the video, you'll realize that there are elements of coding, so being very tech-based and exercising a lot of the computational thinking logic. But there are also a lot of evidence of non-tech-based items such as the cardboard making, the strawberries building. So that would be actually our other aspect of the maker program that runs in Montfort Junior School as well. So when we embark on the computational thinking in our first year, we needed some desirable outcomes, some things that help us to guide the learning objective of the program. So key stage 1 will be meant for the lower primary, P1 to P3, and then key stage 2 goes up in difficulty, will be for the primary 4 to primary 6 programs. And so along the way, and currently now, we are still revising this and seeing how we can adjust the terms here to make it more focused for us as the program designers, as well as for the students to be able to assess their own learning after undergoing the program. All right, so in a very pictorial way, to see how it spirals up from primary 1 to primary 6 in Montfort Junior, P1, P2 will undergo Scratch Junior and Scratch programming. There is a robot being introduced this year, so that's the M-board. In primary 3, we go into virtual reality, so we explore a virtual space known as co-space. And in primary 4, we start to tinkle with cardboard making and the use of microbit. So it's kind of an integration between these two. And then in primary 5, this was also featured in a video earlier on where there was a musical instrument. That is a level-wide program known as the interactive art. And then in primary 6 is a accumulating kind of event. So it's a level-wide hackathon before their graduation from school. So I'll pass on the time now to Patrick, who will show you pictures and videos with reference back to this table here that kind of sum up the activities that we run through the different levels in Montfort Junior School. Patrick, please.
Okay, thank you, Norman. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry if I say the wrong thing. I'm very nervous right now. Hardly speak to so many people at once. Okay, so for our program, as you can see, that we have the tech-based and non-tech-based. So I'm the one who's in charge of the tech-based from planning the vendor from P1 to P4. So as you can see, P1 we learn about the Scratch Junior. Okay, this is the first year where they learn coding. So we chose the simplest program that they can learn pick up very fast. Okay, then we move on to Scratch. Okay, in P2, and we also introduced this year the M-board coding, so that we give the pupils a chance to see that everything they do not only can happen in the computer itself, but also anything that can code, we will see the coding being activated into the M-board itself. Sorry. Okay. Okay, as for P3, okay, we I consulted with the vendor, and they actually gave me the idea that, okay, after seeing the coding, why not try to do something with CodeSpace, which also infused into our maths lesson. Okay, and then this one is more like a virtual reality, and where they use the coding skills which they learn from Scratch and Scratch Junior, which is rather similar, and make things make a maze out of a game of maze out of the whole programming at the end of the show, at the end of the course. Okay, for P4, okay, we will touch on microbit coding. Okay, it's also linked on from all of it from P1 to P3. Okay, a lot of them are very block coding type, so it's rather easy for them for the turnover from P3 to P4, which from block coding they're still learning dragging the blocks in and building out a program, and actually the end of product is building a safe home, which we'll see in the picture later. Okay, Norman, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is P1. All of them are working on their Scratch Junior. Okay, yeah, using iPads. So P2, okay, we have a better picture on how the Scratch program is. It's actually a free software. Okay, you can actually ask your kids at home to learn it by themselves also. Okay, then we have the bottom left, we have the M-board this year. Okay. Yeah. So basically, whatever they program in their computer is straight directly loaded into the little M-board, so that they will have the idea of that things that I do on computer can actually link to outside world. So it's more tactile for the boys, since boys love to move things and build things also. Okay, let's move on. Okay, when they reach P3, these are in their MCCA, okay, the modular curriculums activities. So they have the strawberries, okay, they also have the cold space, which is in the next slides. Yeah, that's a video.
Yay! Can I see a helicopter?
Yeah, so you can see that they basically use the code to spin the rotors around. Okay, for cold space, which is the P3 are learning this year. Okay, so they learn about the coding. They learn about dragging the pictures into their areas. Okay, the screen itself. Then they build how to move the animals or move the things along. Okay, and they also learn about area and parameter in the as an infusion with the maths topic. Let's go on. Next slide. For P4, okay, this is the microbit introduction. As you can see in the middle, that is the final project that all of them are supposed to do. Okay, they start from the very first lesson. There are total of 7 lessons. So they started off with learning about the microbit itself, how to code it, what are the different functions that they can do, then what are the external connector they can use, okay, like lights, sound, what sort of sensor they can use. Okay, let's watch a video of how the house, safe house is, or the smart home. Yeah. Supposedly the tent must when touch doorbell, there's a signal for the whole the family member that know there's someone at the door. Okay, then switch on the lights, everything for the house. So it's a rather interesting things, interesting ways when the boys are building the house. I was watching around, looking at them, questioning them, and they can actually answer in their mind, how is it, how they want the things, and then they will have to come up with the code. Some of them don't work, so usually I'll just question them, and eventually the boys, they are quite smart. I believe it's a new age thing. They know how to go around and actually get the coding to work without much help from the teachers. Let's move on, Norman. Okay, for P5 we have the cluster friendship hackathon. Okay, this is also one of the platform for the boys to showcase what they have learned from P1 to P4. Okay, is open up the cluster and they'll come along. Okay, the cluster students come along, they join together, and everyone in the team are from different schools. It's a build up friendship. They also have a good chance that to learn from others, to learn from each others. Okay, see this P5 infusion into art and music. We have Mickey on the top right hand. Okay, we also have they also came out with a project for the Mr. Wong and our principal sitting there with a white long sleeve, and also we have some videos. Okay, I can't recall what is this video. Okay, maybe Norman can play along.
Good morning, I'm Pura. Today we are presenting the project, the Lama with the song All of this is created by a selection of boys with Rasa Sayang, Kate Mother, and character Nasi. We have come together and made an item which can play music. So we will be presenting you the music.
All right, Patrick, I will just jump in here and elaborate a little bit more about this program. So this is kind of an integration between art and music, as the title suggests here. However, what is very kind of commendable about this program is that it takes about a whole term, right, about 10 weeks, That includes a design thinking cycle that the students go through. So the target audience here are actually the non-teaching staff. So that includes our principal, as well as the security guard that you see featured in this presentation. So they went out to interview them prior to making the project, which includes questions like what's your favorite song, to what's your favorite food, and for Mr. Wong is what's your favorite sport or hobby. So I will just move on to the next video for Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Norman. Okay, so you have a wonderful video about how the boys have made use of their coding. Okay, then this is also artwork, art pieces they have created. Okay, you can see that a lot of them are using microbits with all the LEDs, with all the servos, and a lot of other things that they can be connected to microbit to showcase their arts. Norman?
My name is Harvey. Our microphone has outside. This one is as a tutor, and our output is so that's when I read about the project.
Then we put them there with their cousin.
Help with the? So you learn from it?
Okay, for Primary 5 Cluster Hackathon, you can see that the boys and the boys are actually mixed with other schools. That they when they come in, it's more of like a design situation. They have to they are given a problem that they have to think through what sort they can come up with, what sort of solution they can come with. So it's more collaboration with all the different schools. Everyone have to chip in their ideas. Some may be a good coder, some may be good builders. So everyone work as a team, and they can come up with all sort of projects that you won't think of. Okay, thank you, Norman. Let's move on. Okay, then for P6, which is our level-wide, our school-based event. Okay, these are all for P6 or the PSLE after PSLE program. So the same thing is a design problem. Okay, they are given the problem. They come in groups of different classes. Okay, and they have to come up with a program. Come up with a building, a robot or whatever they can come up with to solve the problem. Okay, then the bonus we have the sumo fight. Okay, at the end of the things. Okay, this is more picture of them. You can see that there are different classes. They are all working together. So the boys can really join together even though they are not from the same class. Okay, yeah. So in future in mathematics, we also have a sparrow. Okay, we are using a sparrow. It's basically a small little ball. Okay, that the student can code and roll it along the grids. Okay, it's actually on the floor. They're not even a grid. That they are supposed to rotate and face the direction, move to the direction, just using codings. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this is also bot. Okay, learning of speed, distance, and property of circles. Okay, for the P5 and P6s to use. Okay, for enrichment, okay, we have our boys here who actually spend their own time, okay, at the Tinker Shop. Okay, they will have to they come up with this 3D Tronics Asia 3D Tronics Asia competition. Okay, they design, make, and present all these to at the festivals. Okay, this one it will be the Singapore Youth Science Festivals. Okay, the boys also same thing. They came in to build their own design. Okay, with very little help from the teachers. Okay, all of them, all these are based on what they have learned throughout the years. Okay, on the top left corner, that picture there. Okay, this is actually science infusion. This is a boat making for the P3s. Okay, it's very non-tech based. Basically, it's more of building their own design and testing on how far their boats can run. Okay, this is purely enrichment. These 4 boys actually went on to sign up at Vivid Stock Orchard, which is a very nice place to go to. Okay, they have a competition and yeah, so these are the project they come up with, and they are all with some awards. Okay, with this is the unstructured playtime. Okay, the boys are all encouraged to go to the tinker shop during recess time. Okay, to do things. Okay, to do things according to the theme given, and for them to have a hands-on building things, for them all to build their things, like for example paper planes, cannons, okay, or even art stuff. Okay, they can create art pieces. So yeah, so basically, as you can see the 5 points on the on the screen itself. Student work towards problem solving. Yeah, we give it a challenge. Teacher or self-director wrote achieving success. Some may not achieve success, some may have to take a longer time. Scaffolding, very little. Okay, we don't want to give them instructions. Okay, we just move on, and if they come to us, okay, tell them, then we'll question them. Okay, things may turn out messy. Okay, they may mess up the place, but if there's no mess, there's no learning. Okay, empowered through choice. They are the owners of the things they make. They have their own choice. So this is all our practice, our belief that kids must do it on their own. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. I suppose that's the end of the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Norman and Mr. Patrick, for sharing the comprehensive program from P1 to P6, and even reaching out to the non-STEM subject and even getting your principal involved. Okay, so due to time constraint, unfortunately, we can't do a live Q&A. When we organized this CTFest teacher event, actually, our original intention was to have only 4 speakers, right? But we received a pretty enthusiastic response, and we actually expanded the number of speakers today, right? So we expect that teachers are enthusiastic and things will somehow overrun. so therefore we will park the Q&A to the document so that you can continue to interact with the speakers. Right, so we will move on to the next talk, and that will be by Miss Aslina from Boon Lay Secondary School. So she's a CPA teacher, and she was also the recipient of the Google Outstanding Computing Teacher Award. Right, so yeah, so without taking up too much of her time, let's invite her, yeah, to come on stage. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. G. All right. Okay, so mine is more of pedagogy, okay, because I'm teaching the lower progress learners, our normal tech students. Okay, so how are we supposed to provide the support, the education support in promoting computational thinking in CPA? Because our students, honestly, they don't like coding. They see codes, they run. Okay, so how are we going to overcome this? Because this is their examination subject. Okay, before I continue, my name is Azlina Muslimi. I'm from Boon Lay Secondary. I've been teaching CPA for many years now, and technology landscape has been changing, and we have to equip ourselves not only the software but also the pedagogy that goes along with it. So what is some challenges that I face while teaching CPA? Many, okay, because like I mentioned, we not only do coding, we have other softwares as well, but Scratch is the most difficult one that we find because the students are just not into it. They see the question, they see it's very long, it's very wordy, and they just switch off. And then they see all those drag, even though it's drag and drop, but once they see the quotes, they get switched off. Okay, so how are we to overcome that? Okay, so initially we were just hoping that by chance they will understand, and we will go through, because they're always waiting for our answers. They are just like little birds waiting for food from the mama, just wait. So we give answers, then they copy, and that's it. There's no thinking, there's no translating. So we find that they find it very difficult to understand the concept and skills. They cannot translate the codes, and our students have very different learning abilities and learning styles. So what do we do? So based on the literature review that we have, okay, why it's happening is because of working memory. They forget. We only have our lessons like twice a week, 2 periods per session, and they will forget. And we always, our line that comes, I thought I just taught you this, always comes to us, right? We keep repeating that, but the thing is they cannot remember. Just take a look at our handphone number. It's only 8 numbers, right? Look at our postal code, only 6 numbers. There's a reason for it, because our memory cannot contain too long a number. So our students, right, if you do not have the rehearsal part, if you look there under working memory, if they do not have a lot of practice on it, they'll forget. And once they forget, it will just disappear. So we want to ensure that it goes to the long-term memory. And how do you do that? I will share with you later on. Okay, what else? Yeah, so we will do breaking down a task into smaller steps, and we will keep on repeating the particular skills, but different ways. Okay, what about this gradual release of responsibility instructional framework? Basically, it's I do, we do again, and then they do. Sometimes we are stuck with the we do, forever we do. But it's okay, because that is expected. Our students are very much not confident in going to the you do part. Once they are ready, they will show you that they're ready. Okay, so the bottom line is always have faith in our students. Right, so looking at this under Fisher and Frey, it is a framework that shifts the cognitive load from teacher to the student. So we always use the I do, we do, you do in the CPA classroom, and employ direct and guided instruction where we scaffold the lessons. So all our worksheets have that, and CPDD has just released the new syllabus whereby they actually included this I do, we do, you do part in our lessons. Previously, we do not have, so we have to create for our own. And the routines are very important for our students, because our students, they thrive with routines, because they want to know what's happening. They want to know, they do not like unknown variables in their life. Okay, for example, that's why we always have our learning objectives always on the board. They need to know what's happening. And now, especially our NTech students, they really can do well if there's a routine set for them from day one. Okay. So according to Mr. G, this is what we're supposed to go through, right? The abstraction, decomposition, pattern recognition, and algorithm design. For CPA, not so much of abstraction, because the questions are already done for us. I mean, the students do not need to do any abstraction. There's no noise in the question. It's very straightforward. But they have problems in trying to break down the question, problems in pattern recognition, and also in the algorithm design to see the sequence of the particular code and how it works, and also the flow chart. They have to also come up with a flowchart for their exam questions. So what is our design? Okay, when we do this, basically 2 things, scaffolding and routines. And under scaffolding, we will include the breaking it down and also the gradual release. But the routines part, right, we can also put in the breaking down under the routines part, under start now and exit pass. We also have find it, fix it, which is to do debugging at the beginning. So what is this start now and exit pass? Okay, this is actually referenced with the STP ties that I've attended, and we have the whole school, okay, the 4 classes of CPA, right, have already embarked on this start now and exit pass for all the lessons. So what is this start now? Okay, basically it is a very short activity. It can be a worksheet, can be online, offline, can be under a short online worksheet that they can do. It must be short. Most importantly, it must be short. less than 5 minutes. It must always be, you must start it at the beginning of the lesson, and it must be simple enough for them to recall and recap. Because if it's too difficult, students cannot handle, what will they do? They will just get turned off, right? And why is it done in the beginning? Because, you know, when you go to the lab, you have a lot of things to do. You have to set up your computer, you have to switch on the visualizer, you know, all the technical stuff. So when you actually have this particular worksheet already for them, they will take it and then they will do it. So when students have nothing to do, they will tend to misbehave. But when they have something to do, they're engaged, right? So what my students will do is they'll come in, they will do the wipe down, take the paper, go to the table and start doing. So if they're a bit late, like for example, you know, like or people already started the paper, it's okay, it's fine. You just join in and quickly do your work, okay? And this really helped me to maximize my instructional time. And what is wonderful about it is when I go through the class with the worksheet with them, I can actually set my pace and see where they are and begin from there. Because sometimes what we plan is not the same as what they know. And our students are not ready. Once they're not ready, and then that's where the miscommunication comes in, and then a lot of learners will come in. So what is the start now? It must be shorter than 5 minutes. It must be assessed and marked by students. You do not collect it and then mark it, because then the AFL, the feedback is going to be very slow. Okay, and then it must be done for almost all lessons. Okay, why almost? Because when you have tests, you know, you do not have any start now, because straight away you're going to do your test, right? But every lesson should have, and my students are so good in this routine that sometimes when I forget, okay, I'm only human, right? Sometimes I forget, and they will say, "Che, where's my start now?" Then you have to come up with a lot of excuses. But the moment they remember that, it will stuck in your mind that you cannot forget your start now. So what kind of start nows can we have? There's a lot of modes. You can have online, you can have offline, you can have debugging, fill in the blanks, quiz, matching, a lot of structure that you want, so long as you can find out where they are. So what's the benefits? I make use of my time very effectively, and I can also detect from them where they are. And for the students, right, they are able to activate the memory, and then this helps to increase their readiness when learning the next lesson. Now, why is this important? Because like what I mentioned, our students are very turned off with programming. But the moment they have small successes, they have this confidence, they are ready, then they are more willing to want to learn next, in the next lesson. So what is this standard exemplars, right? This is what I did for my students. Okay, it may look a little bit difficult at first because lots of spaces for them to fill up, and I only give them 4 minutes, 58 seconds. But please take note that this is not their first time doing this. They have already done this before. This is a recap. So I may change the question a little bit, but for the first one over here on the left side, I gave the statements already. Then the next time I see them, I actually remove the statements and they're supposed to fill up the rest. So first time, second time, third time, it will not be so successful because, like I said, they are very used to wanting your answers. They want to know your answers. So then they're very scared. They don't want to write. You know, then they say it's wrong. But I think after about 5, 6 tries, when they're more confident, they know it's correct, then they get better by time. So don't lose hope, just persevere. Okay, so yeah, so as you can see the arrow there is because I removed the statement part for the next start now. Okay, what other start now have I got? I break it down. So for us, it's like so simple, right? We have game start, we know what's the shape, to have an answer, this and that. But our students don't even know whether they need to draw a shape for a certain particular word. So for starter, I give them simple ones whereby they just have to rearrange them in terms of how the coding is going to, how the sequence is going to look like. So again, I break it down for them. Okay, then what about matching? So similar code, but slightly different. Okay, one is forever, one has nothing at all. Then one has got if on age bound, so things like that. So I will give quite a number of such activities for them to see that, hey, I have there's actually a difference if I put a different code inside. And I have a lot of breakdowns as well to see whether they truly understand the codes. If you see at the left side, what actions would the sprite do when it touches the cat, and then on the right side to know the X and Y axis of the backdrop. Sorry. Okay, then another one to break it down even further, to have to see whether they are able to see detect that, you know, what makes the sprite go faster, go slower, and then what makes it repeat. So these are the things that we are so familiar, but the kids are not. That is where we keep on checking them. On the right side, again, it's like MCQ, like matching, but done differently. Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay, then this is a worksheet I do. So just now was all the start nows. Then when I have a worksheet, I have this game that they're supposed to do, but they're not familiar. They are very scared because they have this only one portion, right? But for their exam, they have many portions. There are 3 portions to this, and then they get very scared. Then they will get turned off. So what do we do? For us, it's very easy for us to visualize the codes, but for them, it's not. So what, for starters, I will do this for them. Put the code together with the word to tell them that this correlates. And then when they go to the Scratch program, then they can see, I have to use this to make this happen. Okay, so hopefully with this visualization activity, it will come naturally to them after a few rounds. Okay, what is this Fifi? Find it, fix it. One of the things I use for Start Now as well. Very simple activity, just one error per script. And then they're supposed to find what is the error, and then they just have to circle it and write down and correct it. So for example, this one, the windmill is supposed to turn clockwise continuously, but it only turns once. They're supposed to find out why. Then they can see, okay, the forever loop is not there. Therefore, they just circle it and they just put arrow there for forever. Again, like I mentioned, first round, second round, third round may not be so successful, but over the many lessons, then we will see that we can see that they are actually formulating all this in their brain. Okay, another Fifi whereby in a flowchart, at first I was quite ambitious. I gave them 10 errors. Then I find out, hey, they get confused, too many, and they don't know what to do. So when I go down to 2, they find it simple enough for them to solve, and they want to do. So basically, it's all about getting them to be ready and to accept the subject, the lesson, because they already have this stumbling block in their mind. Okay, so what's the benefits of Find It, Fix It? Okay, these are the common errors that students do. I actually just pick it up and then translate onto a worksheet. Then they are able to learn that these are the errors that they're not supposed to do anymore. And it's quite easy because starting the code from scratch is more difficult than looking at the scratch and trying to debug it. So they find it easier for them. And also this is to reinforce the codes that they've learned so that they won't forget it next time. So, but what's the challenge? Sometimes they're able to find the errors, but they have difficulty trying to correct it or to debug it. Like, okay, they circle it, then after that, what next? I don't know. Okay, then that's where we have to come in and then we have to visualize with them again and then look at the blocks again and tell them, okay, which one? Sometimes we have to give them the clue, okay, the block is over here. Which one do you think? Okay, so why is this gradual release of responsibility? This is what we did for our worksheets. For example, okay, I want them to learn how to do ask and wait and to use the answer. These are my objectives. But I did something else that is not inside the textbook. This is the old one. Something similar and simple. So doing a butterfly, getting the ask and wait, and then change of the to use the answer in the ask and wait block. Okay, so this is what they do. Then together we do it, the same thing. Then lastly is they do something similar but different. So we have 3 activities for them to do for the same thing. So this again reinforcement sessions for the kids. Okay, so again, task 1, task 2, task 3. It's always I do, we do, you do. Right. Okay, so what else do we have for the students, for especially those who are faster? Not all the students are turned off. Actually, we have quite a number of students who are very bright and they want to do more, right? So sometimes we give them all these tools like scratch cards. This one I was inspired when I was with Mr. Gee to, when we went to Manchester that time, then we saw the book and I said, hey, I like this book. And then they gave all these scratch cards and it was so wonderful. So we have this thing with our students whereby we actually cut it and then laminate and put in a put as a binder for them to hold. Then along the way we find more codes that's very useful for them. We'll add on for them. Yes. Then again, for independent learning, to give them the confidence again, we have videos that we can put online. I put it on my Google Classroom. So these are videos that either I can find on YouTube or I create myself, something short and simple for them to be able to use it during the lesson, so that they won't keep asking questions. Okay, then for them to want to learn more, for example, they learn certain stuff, right? But then they're still very scared. So we give them a choice. We have one activity whereby we label it project 1, 2, 3, 4, easy, intermediate, and difficult. These are basically online tutorials you can find online on YouTube. They just have to follow. They follow, and then why we do this, even though it's not their game, but having them complete that particular game, right? Following step by step and seeing that it worked. That gives them the satisfaction that the game is working, and then again to increase their level of readiness in coding. So it's always about getting them to be confident, getting them to say that, hey, Scratch is actually okay. It's not that difficult. You just have to learn how to decode. You just have to learn how to break it down. You just have to learn how to see which code match with which particular action. Okay, and then our SOW will always have this, whereby we have the you do and the which is must do, and aspire to do. So aspire to do are for those who are very, very good. They can do without much help from us, and then they want to stretch their ability. So go ahead, because we have time while waiting for the not too fast students to complete their work. Then these students can actually do make the game more interesting. They can add a level, they can make it more difficult, they can edit costume and change the background, things like that. Yeah, so what is the benefit of must do and aspire to do? The must do is the one that they have to complete, right? And the aspire to do is the more challenging ones. Give them the freedom and variety, because students don't like to, hey, I finish already, I do what? No, then they're bored. So stretch them, and then, but what about those who are not so good? Then they say, I cannot do this, it's so difficult. Then we bring down the level. As long as the objectives are met, but it is done in a different level, I think that's fine. Okay, what is this as it pass? I think all of us are very familiar with this. Basically, at the end of the lesson, it must be very short to use, and must take the time to use it very quickly, and can be very small. So it's very similar to Start Now, but this is done at the end of the lesson. Okay, again, to make it a routine, do it every lesson. And this is very good for teachers to check their understanding and then to plan for the next lesson, and students to do a recap. So it's a vicious cycle. So it's a cycle whereby they are always made to remember things. So starting, they have Start Now. Then in between, they have all the gradual release of responsibility. They have all the scaffolding, and then at the end of it, they have this as it pass. The next lesson, same again. So it keeps on going to them that, hey, this is what I need to do. I will remember this, and I will try my best not to forget. So again, the various modes of EasyPass will be this, because we are using our students already have their PDLP, they have the iPad. So sometimes we make them do note making on OneNote as well. Yep. So that's it.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Ms. Asina, for sharing from the perspective of a CPA teacher. And CPA
Thank you.
is already the largest group of computing education in Singapore. Yeah. So again, we invite everyone to post your Q&A to the document while we move on with the next speaker. Right. So just now you can see that Ms. Asina actually did a lot of abstraction and decomposition for her students, right, for CPA. So now let's move on to the next speaker, which is Mr. Chen Hong Tak from Admiralty Secondary School, who will share about how CT is applied in the STEM ARP program. Right. Yes, Mr. Chen, please.
Hi everyone, just a sound check if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much.
You can see the slide.
Right, okay, I can just start my slide, yeah.
Yes, the slides are there.
Yeah. It takes some time. Okay. I'm Hong Tak from Admiralty Sec. After seeing all the different presentation, I'm here to share about what we are doing. We are slightly different in the sense that we are secondary school, and also the platform that we are using is also slightly different. We are using more authentic tasks in the form of, we are using some electronics parts in the form of microcontroller, and then we get the students program it and then develop products and things like that. Okay, so I'll just go through fast about what's happening. In my presentation, I'm not going to cover about, we actually have two parts of it, which is the design thinking and STEM part. I'm not going to cover anything about design thinking, right? I will just fully cover about the STEM part because we are about computational thinking, right? So, okay, let me start. Okay, so basically some of these are the overview. Okay, I will just run fast. That's not really the intent for today. So okay, so this is the type of things that we do, right? Over to the left hand side is our typical learning journeys that we wanted to inspire students for more ideas. Sometimes these are all pre-COVID era. We bring them to a hangar to see what's happening in the aircraft, and then what are the electronics and things like that, and then how it works. And also sometimes we just bring them to places like NYT, some of these specialized lab, and then look at all the intelligence that's built inside. So then the students will proceed with building things that they think is useful for community, and then we will just basically use this as a platform for them to get to share with the community based on what they build. So in this over here, right, these are some of the automated, I think something like automated opening of door or light, your light up at night automatically when there's darkness, things like that. And then sometimes we get them to build more complicated devices, and then we just showcase, give them some platform to showcase, and in this case it's Intel Meet Tomorrow. Okay, so when it comes to Intel that type of platforms, right, we actually really good. It is about tier 2 of ALP. ALP, they are tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is basically what you generally do for the whole school, and tier 2 is really those students who are really more ready, and then they have the interest, and then you want to grow the interest, you want to push them a bit by the limit. So we go into a tier 2, right? We bring them to tier 2. So basically, as part of our ALP, we actually our ALP is actually about alignment to emerging technology. We do design thinking as a thinking process, right? We teach students about design thinking as a thinking process, but actually the implementation of all the products we build, right, is we basically using microcontrollers, in particular Arduino and also micro:bit. And then the way we look at DT is just to understand the problem and unpack the problem, and also make sure that the problem are really presented to the user's needs. So most of us are familiar with DT, right? Design thinking. The thing here is that for today's purpose, let me unpack the design thinking towards the SDLC, which is the software development life cycle. You can look at it; they are quite similar. Okay, right? For example, the empathize on the design thinking, right, is actually the requirement analysis. Okay, on number 1 on the right hand side, yeah, this part. Okay, and then after that you need to define, and then you plan, which is actually and then idea, right? The ideation is actually your design stage. Okay, right, and then you build, which is a prototype, and then you test, right? They are quite similar. So in a way, we adopt design thinking because it's actually more inclusive. It can allow you to build a non-software product. You can, in fact, can build anything, right? Even building any solution. Okay, so these are our design thinking, the design thinking key concepts, right? So basically, the bulk of the things I'm showing is try to show which part of it that fall under here. I'm not going to unpack it, but you should be able to see this inside our codes, right? So basically, our curriculum our ALP curriculum, right, which we run every 2 weeks to students, right, basically lingering between design thinking and the STEM, right? We call it innovation technology. And in the coding is only one part of the STEM, right? And the other part is to build circuits. So students are basically at the end of the 2 years, which is Sec 1 and Sec 2, the bulk of our students are very, very firm in circuitry, to the extent whereby when we go into physics classes in Sec 3, when it comes to circuitry, they don't need any help to fix them, right? Because we have been doing that for every 2 weeks, over 2 years. So this is how the evolution of our journey looks like. Okay, so basically everything start from 2014-15 that phase, and then our main STEM partner is STEM Inc. With Science Center and also NYP for design thinking. We are adopting the Stanford version of design thinking model. Okay, University of Stanford lah. So then we have our first trial in 2016, and then from there on we modify our way in terms of our programs, and then really align to what we need. Okay, so that's 2019 to 2021, and so let me go through a bit of these structures. So tier 1, basically, right, set 1 and set 2, they are all in tier 1, right? And then for tier 2, right, we are looking at set 3, and for set 4, they are not involved in this. So basically, right, for set 1 and set 2, they are just doing a lot of skill-based learning in terms of design thinking, and as well as the STEM in terms of content. So for today's presentation, right, I will just zoom into the set 1. Okay, we don't have enough time actually for us to go into the set 2, but I will just give you the overall outline of what we are doing. So for tier 2, just remember it is for set 3, and then it's a much complicated student-initiated, student-driven projects, right? Okay. So basically for tier 1, right, this is what we do. We have two types of platform. One is Arduino, and one the other on the right hand side, Arduino, and then the other one is actually our microbit. Okay. Basically, right, all these platforms, right, we want the students to work with sensors as well as the actuator, which is the output. That means you have some input and then you want to have output. In this case, our output devices are things like LED, buzzer, and servo, right? So then why are we having two platforms? It's actually meant for differentiation, right? For the differentiation by interest and actual also readiness. Not all students are ready for coding, but those who are ready for coding, we will give them into line coding platforms. These are our sorry, we have more than 2 types. We have block coding, which is like microbit. We are not involved in Scratch, right? But microbit is similar to Scratch. It's just that it has electronics on it. Then we are into command line, which we use C and Python. And then sometimes we also use card games when the students we want just to take students out for a while and then expose them on the different platforms. So we use Potato Pirates, which is something. Sorry, this is supposed to be a singular. So basically, again, it depends on readiness. But in general, readiness means our NT students, we generally put them on microbit, and then and our NA and Express students, we generally put them on our Arduino platforms, which runs on C. So this is sample lessons for microbit, right? You can see that they actually a sample code lah. So basically, right, contrary to our normal coding practice, of which we have a start and end of command line, microbit actually support what we call event-driven. For the more technically inclined, we call it interrupt-driven. So basically, right, you can actually start and the general start, and then but it can be interrupted, and then whenever people set up some some changes to the device, it can be interrupted. So this part of routine will be actually triggered, and then you can see all the if else are used by students. Okay, so students actually are able to understand the simple if else, right? So our students generally have no issue with microbits for those who are given the microbits as a pass. Then so this is Python for when you are using what we call the code combat. Okay, so for code combat, right, basically it's a game platform of which they need to code in order to complete the game. So basically, the winning means speed of completion. Winning means level of completion, but it's actually the level followed by speed. And we have a fair bit of we tried out this year. Now what happened was that normally we don't use this platform, but what happened was that because of COVID, we have a lot of things like cannot have group, and then normally we do have grouping all these things. Now we cannot have group and all this. So but all our students have PLD. So we get them to get PLD, which is a Chromebook, and then all log into our code combat. And then we have a fair bit of students for each class. We have a 3 to 6 this number of students who are able to complete the full level of the free version, the level 19, okay, in 1 hour time span. So they are actually quite good. What we do is that we just give them some initial hit, and then code combat are able to give them a lot of hit, and then they learn along the way. So what we like about this type of platforms, right, in terms of if you look at the type of code they use, right, the conditional loop are used, and then things like what we call the if-else statements, they are all used there, which is actually essentials of all our computational thinking concepts. So then we also use card like this. This is called potato pirates. Students basically they have to supposed to draw a lot, and then they have to use some strategy in order to win a game, but they need to know things like while loop, and then conditional statements, and then for loops in order for them to play the cards, play the games. Okay, so students when we try out again this year, they actually enjoyed these particular games, right? But again, this game is not all the time you can play because it's a lot of touch points. So it's only when there's no low touch point, that type of things, then you can allow them to play. But our students in general love to play this game. Okay, so then you can see the rules are all here, right? And where the green refers to I think it's action. Then here is a control. Okay, this control means all the conditions, right? And then these are all the actions. So now coming back to our normal STEM lesson. Okay, so I just pick up one STEM lessons to analyze. So basically, right, we give them some trigger. In this case, basically it's a robot, and Sophia is actually a robot, and then they have a dance and things like that. Then we hope to just excite the students over what we can do with robotics, right? And then after that, this is a circuit. So basically, students are expected to they have been trained and expected to pick up circuits. We don't give notes. All our instructions are in SLS. So basically, right, step-by-step instructions are in SLS. They will just look at the instructions, and then they shall run. Okay. So basically, we go in, and then they will just ask for help if they don't understand. And most of the help, right, we will just direct them. Hey, can you just ask your friend about this? And then most of the time, they get answers from right. Okay. So they just need some clarification. And so basically, we actually have a lot of so-called scaffolding here and there along the way. But more importantly, is actually you can see that we actually have a lot of this command line code, right? And then sometimes we ask them to compare and contrast as part of the learning in their coding. Okay, so in this case, right, they are trying to make the buzzer and also the LED blink, and then buzzer to make some noise here and there, right? Then along the way, we teach them concepts like time delay, and also how this whole code interact with the physical hardware. Okay, so so basically from this, right, you can see that actually we also tell them about basic coding structures in a proper command line coding. Right, you have declaration of variable, looping, and then setup, things like void function. These are typical C codes. So our students are very exposed to C codes. Okay, so then we summarize the lesson. This is the first lesson in coding. So basically, that's how it works. And then also, when the COVID came, and then a lot of things cannot be shared, and then we also don't have so many laptops for them to code. So we moved to simulator. So we actually have a simulator called Tinkercad, and then most of us who are familiar with Tinkercad is actually a 3D modeling software, but actually it can be used as a circuit and code simulator. So Tinkercad actually to us, right, is actually both design thinking and the design part of the design thinking, and also the circuit part of the STEM. So basically it gels very well as our platform for learning for students. So our students, what they do is that they take up the PLD, which is actually a combo, and then they will start code. They just log into Tinkercad, and then they start doing the coding. So we give them circuits. We don't modify any of our instructions. We just that they code. They actually do the connect a circuit in simulated mode, and then after that they upload their code, and then this is the code that's uploaded there, and then they just press the run button, and then it runs. Okay. So you can see here that they actually you have a for loop here, right? And then also a declaration of variables in our command line. Basically, over here, for the same code, they can actually use block coding as well. So, and then, okay, so when it comes to assessment, basically, it's very short now. We are not supposed to do assessment. We just take it as a feel of what's happening in the lesson, right? So and then after that, we just want to sense what's happening. Then, yeah. So for the tier 2, for the Sec 2, what we do is actually the same skill in Arduino, but we attach a controller there called Elegant ND. And then the purpose of Elegant ND is to communicate with iPad. And then we will use iPad to control what they have built in Sec 1. Okay, so that is what they do, right? And then so they have an iPad which they download an app called Elegant ND. And then after that, they use that to control the circuits in the Arduino. Okay, so that's what they do. So Sec 1, right? This is how the type of learning outcome for Sec 1 and Sec 2, right? For design thinking, and we actually have So let me go to the focus here for Sec 2 in terms of coding. So you can see the main difference is that within Sec 1, Sec 2, right? We go into more coding part in terms of use of ND as well as the iPad. Okay, right. So then for tier 2, this is what we do. For those students who are very, very good, and then they say they have some interest from our ALP, what we do is that we actually give them some projects that actually we give them the opportunity for those projects that they decide what they want to do. Okay, so then what they do is that they go and interview on the community needs, and then they'll just tell us, hey, I want to do this because you can address certain part of the problem and use of design thinking. Okay, so so these are the past processes that we have gone through, right? And then I just need to emphasize that this group of people for tier 2, right? They are about 20 to 30 people, right, for Sec 3. So it's about one class work. So I'm not going to elaborate on that. But okay, so one of the projects that we went through, right, is actually the innovation program. Okay, so the innovation program. So they actually form a group, then form a team, and then they say, okay, my project is good, so I wanted to participate in this. Then okay, so in terms of tailored development for in the area of computational thinking, these are the platforms that we actually send our students. Instead of telling them that we send them, what we do is actually we ask who wants. So we ask the whole school who wants, and then from those people who wishes to come forward, and we put some effort to some resources to grow in this area. Okay, so this is what we do, right? I think that's all about what I have. Sorry, one more. Okay, NRPC, the National Robotics Programming Competition for primary school. Some of you might have heard of this. It's actually our most major competitions that our students organize for the whole of Singapore. Anyone who has seen in robotics, right, they will come forward, and then they have a little mission for challenge. Right, we organize this in conjunction with Nanyang Poly. Our students are the organizers; they are the judges as well. We can see from the pictures here, right? So that's all I can share about what we have done in the area of CT. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Mr. Chen. Yeah, for sharing a comprehensive overview of the CT-related programs from tier 1 to tier 2. Right. So again, if you're interested to find out more or to interact or have questions for Mr. Chen, please use the Q&A document. Yeah. So now the next speaker is also in ERP, right? And he's from Montfort Secondary School, and we would like to invite Mr. Wong Teck Piao. Sorry, is yeah. Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Very warm afternoon to Prof Louis. I think Prof Leong is here as well. My compatriots from Montfort, Norman, Patrick, and Mr. Wilbur Wong, Principal. All my competing classmates who are present, okay, and everyone, hi. Let me put my slides on share. Okay, I'm here to share with you the efforts that are made in Montfort's applied learning program. My take on computational thinking in ALP, basically, we do impart a certain framework for the students. I think this year is was the first year that we actually made space and time for design thinking to come in into play in ALP lah. Yeah.
After following up from Mr. Cheng's sharing from Admiralty, I realized that we have a lot of similarities in between our two ALP programs. Montfort also being on the emerging technologies strand. Okay, a bit about myself. Okay, no pun intended. A bit. I am coordinating for the ALP program in Montfort Secondary. I am also the coordinator for the Maker Club CCA, maintaining a maker space in Montfort, and also coordinating for all matters related to O-level computing subject. In my free time, I like to try on data science projects on Kaggle and take on the occasional hackathon. Currently, between my prelim exam markings and the end of year exam paper setting, I'm spending my free time collaborating with a few MOE theatre enthusiasts in developing some infographics on Tableau for the GovTech's TEDx data storytelling competition. Today's sharing is okay. We just give you a very broad overview of my ALP and some updates about certain new initiatives that I've taken on, namely the M5 IoT Code for Fun lesson package and the Cloud AI module. I'll also share with you some of the highlights and pitfalls about taking these very emerging technologies into curriculum. Okay, so basically this is how the big pieces fall into place in Montfort Secondary. So ALP is provided across both Sec 1 and 2 levels, right? And complementing it will be my CCA, our Maker Club CCA, that actually we are in our 3rd year, so we have got 3 batches so far. So we will finally get our 4th batch next year, and we have all 4 levels being represented in the CCA. At Sec 3 level, Express, students Sec 2 will be offered to take up computing, right? And yeah, and the hope is that we are able to future-proof our students and then provide them a steady pathway into tertiary courses. Okay, so we used to be on Arduino for Sec 1s. Okay, so our ALP focus is on microcontrollers as well. We used to be all Arduino, but when the microbit got launched, right, we saw it as a potential to push it into the ALP syllabus. So that took its space in the Sec 2 program. It also further adds a bit of alignment to what's happening in Sec 3 for O-level computing, because MicroPython is actually one of the languages that we can code the microbit in, right? Then came along the M5 stack, the M5 Go IoT kit, which offered as part of the Code for Fun program under IMDA. So we took on this chance to transit from the Arduino to the M5 stack. Okay, so what happens is that in Sem 1, the Sec 2s will run the Python Python module, and then they combine it with the automated savings bank project. After that, is 8 weeks of Cloud AI. And in Sem 2, right, the Sec 1s currently in session with the M5 stack. Okay, so one of the reasons why we decided to migrate to M5 and teach the Arduino is because we wanted to do away with the breadboarding. Just now I saw Mr. Cheng show the breadboard circuit, and I knew exactly what he was doing. Well, that's all, that's all good, right? The thing about breadboarding is that my ALP teachers were fighting 2 fronts when they are carrying out Arduino lessons. One is troubleshooting of the breadboard circuits, and the other one would be the debugging of the code. So getting older in age as well, the teachers like us would attest to the difficulty in scrutinizing the breadboard, components. So the M5 sensors and actuators all come pre-packaged as modules using Grove connectors. Okay, so this definitely free up my teacher space and time to fully focus on troubleshooting the code only. Yeah, so I am actually quite glad to report that almost 100% of the students this semester so far have experienced success in the M5 Code for Fun lesson code task. Right? I mean, what they're doing is that they are presented code in the lab manual, and then basically they are typing it out into the IDE to try it out. So freeing up the students from backboarding also gives them more time to for critical thinking, okay, in terms of project ideation, right? The other things that are good about the M5 is that it's also based on MicroPython through the web-based IDE, and it also powers 5 volts output, so that we can actually drive the servo motors directly if there was ever a need. Yeah. All right. So that was for my tier 1. My tier 2 LP program is still in the works, in the sense that we are still identifying different platforms, right, in order to engage the students beyond the ALP lessons in class. Right, so we have embarked on joining in the Learning Festival this year. That was actually co-organized by Pei Hua, STEM Inc. and CPDD. Right, so there was previously, I think there were previous iterations of the Maker Fair or the Maker Extravaganza at the Science Center. That was always a very welcome journey to the West to participate in. So we are hoping for everything to open up and then the Maker Extravaganza can carry on. This year also we engaged Polytechnic in the offerings of workshops, especially for data science and cybersecurity. So that kind of give the students a bit of a logical progression if they ever wanted to pursue a few emerging technologies in ALP beyond the classroom. There was also the first ever Deep Racer student league this year. So we did have participation from Montfort Secondary in this league. So yes. So our operations in the ALP lessons are 7 ALP teachers. Okay, we come from different departments, so there's no single department that's anchoring the ALP program. Yeah, okay, so it's across all 8 Sec 2 classes and 9 Sec 1 classes. Okay, Sec 1 being FSBB lah. Okay, it's a full subject-based banding. So ALP comes in as a core subject. So we see them at the form class level. Previously, our lessons were 1 hour 20 minutes, but since last year, I think it's been cut down to 1 hour. So the time is a bit tight. So we really need to get to the point in terms of designing the lesson. Okay, so for our Cloud AI module, we wanted to take the low code or the no code approach and we found that AWS Educate was the best platform so far to being able to expose students to I would say cornerstones of AI like and natural language processing, image recognition, and reinforcement learning. All right. So Lex is the equivalent for NLP in AWS. Image recognition is just called recognition in AWS, and Deep Racer is the platform where reinforcement learning is carried out. So one of the modules, one of the objectives for the Cloud AI module is basically we want to demystify AI for young students. It's not magic, okay? Basically, it's just machine learning from very good quality data. So as we introduce this into ALP, is with the hope that we prepare these students as the next generation of non-tech workforce, right? So yeah, so now we are currently experiencing experiencing an industry 4.0. Cornerstones of the first 3 industrial revolutions will be the steam engine, electricity, and the computers, if I'm not wrong. So the cornerstones for industry 4.0 will be things like big data, AI and machine learning, Internet of Things and cloud computing, robotics and automation as well. But it's quite hard to squeeze everything into a 10 to 13 hour ALP lesson. But Montfort has been able to showcase 3 of these cornerstones, namely AI, cloud computing, and IoT. The last of which M5 Stack was recently added on to the current Sec 1 ALP experience. So why AWS among all the different cloud computing platforms? Simply because it's designed natively in English. Okay, yeah, it's popular and it's a reliable web platform. I think all the regular consumer platforms like Netflix, LinkedIn, Facebook are hosted on AWS. Even our own SLS is hosted on AWS. AWS is also the only web platform to have a semblance of any kind of K-12 education division. I would say semblance because right now, there's an asterisk right there because we are in the AWS is in process of migrating to the academy setup, which is actually more geared towards the tertiary level. So that actually kind of opened up a bit of issues for me as well. So in any case, right, AWS Educate, there is a Asia Pac division right in Singapore where they are able to provide some. Sorry, someone didn't mute the mic. So anyway, yeah. So it was good that we have a representation in Singapore in terms of AWS Educate because we needed the support in terms of free credits, account creation, and some back-end support as well. Okay, what exactly is a low-code movement? Okay, basically it's an approach where you want to abstract away all the nitty-gritty code stuff, you know, and just provide the user with a kind of a high-level interface so that you can get what you want done. So the preliminaries, right? There was some preparatory work for Cloud AI to begin. So we needed to provide AWS with student email addresses for account creation. Also on the vendor side, so I did engage a vendor for these 8 weeks, right? LMS was actually provided by the vendor. So again, email addresses had to be provided. There was some back-end clearance of content creation, account creation by AWS. Yeah. So this picture here shows my trainer, Miss Samantha. Okay, she started with us this year. We carry out the first, of course, she did carry out some of the content as well in terms of imparting some of the more dry stuff like what exactly is cloud computing and machine learning about. But the first tool that we actually used was actually the Lex chatbot. Okay, so there are 3 moves in this lesson, in this part of the lesson, which actually would be to create the server backend, configure the front end Amazon Lex, and after that modify the code responses. On this page here, I actually show you, right, for the Lex chatbot, on the top right hand side, you can see that actually the responses were actually modified so that the bot can actually tell me about prices of a Tesla car, right? So my students have also done some similar code modification, but this is just a sample from what I've done. Do note that, yeah, so for chatbot deployment, right, the students don't really interact directly with the NLP model. I think and the NLP is at play here. If you look at the way that I type in the queries, right, it's a free-flowing English form, but actually the bot can actually recognize and understand what I'm trying to get at and get me the correct information. So the students basically just deploy the chatbot. They don't really have any direct interactions with the NLP model. As for this one here, AWS recognition, the deployment is rather laborious, okay? So if I can just bring you back to Let's Chatbot, I think this lesson, this tool actually goes across 2 to 3 lessons. And for recognition, is again about 2 lessons for the students to be able to complete. So what was laborious about this was that students needed, okay, so the LMS was important because that was how the vendor actually provided boilerplate template codes for the students to copy in. So up to now, our students has always been provided code, okay, in order to modify to get what they want. Okay, so code modification is a very big part of our ALP, except for code for fun. Code for fun is something new this year. Yeah. So in any case, the Sec2s found it that it was very difficult to upload the data sets, image sets, because they were actually quite big and there was a big bottleneck on the Wi-Fi network. And it was quite laborious because the students needed to draw bounding boxes around the objects that they wanted to identify. So next came the other alternative, which was Google Teachable Machine. Google has this suite of experiments, right, called Google Experiments, and they have a section dedicated to AI experiments. So this was one of them. And we found that this was a very good alternative to AWS recognition because it does away with login. For AWS Educate login, in order to get to the AWS dashboard, you needed about 5 to 6 clicks, 5 to 6 click-throughs and 2 to 3 different new tab opening up. So it's not very, very smooth. But with the Google Teachable Machine, basically there's no login. The user interface is very smooth and seamless. And with 5 training images per class and 1 evaluation image, I think that greatly solves the bottleneck issue in terms of uploading of training images. Let me show you a demonstration. This is done in real time. So it's basically a speed run through Google Teachable Machine. What I'm doing now is actually downloading 5 training images for a certain car model. Okay, so I think I'm at 4 or 5. Okay, so Google Teachable Machine requires about 4 to 5 training images and 1 for evaluation. So I'm now on to the second car model. So I've chosen both models as blue to eliminate color as an identification for the image recognition model. So I think I am almost done. So in a couple of images and it should be done. So after this, right, then I will be actually going over to the Teachable Machine and then uploading all these images. So the first 5 is for the Nissan Skyline. The second 5 images will be for the Honda Civic. So as you know, training AI models take quite a lot of time, but in this case, it really didn't. And then now for the evaluation image. You can see that the first one is actually incorrect guess, but the second one is 100% correct and confidence in identifying the Nissan Skyline. So that, I mean, this 1 minute speed run actually just shows you how easy to use Teachable Machine is as compared to AWS recognition, right? So if we come to the final part of the platform being taught in Cloud AI, which is actually the Deep Racer. So basically, this is a autonomous race car, right, that uses reinforcement learning to learn more about the unknown circuit, right, the unknown virtual circuit. So you can either train and evaluate this in the virtual racetrack, or you can actually port it over to a physical model on a physical track. And the culmination of this part of the lesson would be actually a intra-class race, and then the students get all hyped up about you know, who getting the best timing for the actual evaluation track. So again, this is before. Okay, so this basically, you can see the poor performance of the racer in discovering the boundaries of the race circuit. So, and it, okay, so for your information, right, the actual Deep Racer actually has sensors that can sense its immediate range around it. So, but it cannot see too far away. Okay, so unlike what we can see, we can actually see that the track actually runs straight for, let's say, about 50 meters, right? But actually, the Deep Racer can't see that far. Okay, so as a result, there's a lot of trial and error. Okay, so it practically is it literally is 2 hours later, and you get to see that the students actually get to see the difference, right? Of course, these 2 hours later means that we run the training at the end of the previous lesson, and 1 week later they will get to see this performance. Yeah. Okay, as you can see, right, the ability to stay on track is much improved. So at the conclusion of the 8-week Cloud AI module, right, we ran a survey, and I think intuitively we really knew that Deep Racer was the best seller, okay, followed by recognition and chatbot. Yeah, the chatbot deployment was really very clunky and was very, very dry. So comes my reflection. So the low-code approach actually allows the students accessibility to highly technical tools in AWS. Students are also very excited when they see tangible results that are generated in real time. Self-directed learning was very good because it accommodated for a lot of different learning speeds, and of course, the students, what they learn is actually aligned with industry standard of tools as well. Of course, there are some of the pain points with that. If we didn't pitch the content at the right level, right, the level of engagement really dropped. So it was very difficult not to get technical when we were dealing with these three tools. Multiple platforms also may need to be blended together to give a better user experience to the students. Case in point, I had to bring in Google, although this was an AWS platform. So I'm still feeling around, okay? The teachers are still feeling around because EdTech, especially at cloud and AI level, is still maturing. Password management was also an issue. I think there are a lot of things that students need to remember, then they had to remember another 2 passwords. So at times, right, password resets were always bogging the start of the lessons. Although I would say that device independent because AWS is a web app, right? If the students didn't bring their PLDs, their Chromebooks, I'll be in deep trouble because they have to use my slower HP tablets. And of course, trainings, especially for reinforcement learning, is very long. So you need to be very skillful in planning when the training starts and when the evaluation starts as well. Yeah, okay, so I think I've gone through, okay, future plans. I would think that we would need to actually zoom in and narrow down the scope. I think one of the things that I will definitely expand and work on is greater emphasis on deep research. Yeah. Some of the other tools that I'm still scanning and looking for opportunities are things like Intel AI for Youth. Unfortunately, this year's run was actually postponed or cancelled. Sense time, I sat through the workshop, but I actually felt that the content was actually preached at pre-tertiary students. Yeah, that I think there are some lessons that I could use, but if I couldn't use the bulk of it, then I didn't really want to bother with sense time. And furthermore, sense time is actually operating out of Hong Kong, so their native content was actually developed in Mandarin. I would say the same thing for MBlock platform, but MBlock platform at least has block-based programming, IDE, that encompasses pre-trained AI models. I think that was quite exciting because you actually, out of the box, right, you can actually manipulate image and speech recognition models just by dragging and dropping. So I think that's pretty exciting. And the MBlock platform actually provides multiple microcontroller compatibilities. So I think there is potential in exploring this as well. Okay, so I sped through my presentation. I don't know whether we have time for Q&A.
Thanks very much, Mr. Wong. We will keep the Q&A to the Google Doc, right? So
okay.
Thanks for sharing your perspective of how to integrate CT in STEM ARP education by using industry tools. I think that brings in a lot of opportunities for us to show CT ideas. Yeah, but of course, so it requires a lot of careful design also by the teachers. Right. So currently we have already heard two perspectives of STEM ARP, and these are actually done by competent teachers, right? So our next presenter, or actually our next group of presenters, they are actually from Science Center, and they are going to take us through a different spin on how to infuse CT in non-competent teachers. Yeah. So let's hear from Ms. Z Hui and Ms. Alicia Chen from Science Center.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, and thank you for giving us the chance to share what we have done. I'm Zihui from STEM Inc. Science Center. Together with me, I have Eliza. So for those of you who are not so familiar with STEM Inc., We mainly support schools which are doing STEM as their applied learning program. So Montfort and Admiralty Sec are some of the examples. So we would sometimes provide professional development for their teachers as well. So today what we are going to share is actually a sharing session we have done with some of our colleagues from CPDD for the secondary school teachers who have interest to know more about computational thinking. Most of the teacher participants did not have computing or computer science background, so they are relatively new. They know computational thinking, but they want to know more about it. Okay, so the purpose of the sharing was to introduce CT and its 4 components to the teachers, and from there get them to try to recognize and relate these components to their daily life as well as their lessons. So it was about 2.5 hours long, conducted through Zoom. We also made use of Padlet during our discussion activity. So in the table is the flow of the program, which we will be elaborating more in details. Under introduction, before we started to talk about computational thinking, we wanted to start off with something which the teachers may be more familiar with. So we briefly talk about scientific thinking and design thinking. Our intention is to actually let the teachers know that computational thinking is nothing complicated, but just a problem-solving approach to help us tackle a task or a problem. Then we went on to define what is computational thinking using the definition proposed by Janet Wing. And then we introduced the 4 components, namely decomposition, generalization or pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithmic thinking. Okay, so we want the teachers to see why the need for computational thinking, even in non-computing areas, because CT allows individuals to analyze a problem systematically and implement the most efficient and effective solution with or without the use of computers. As some of the teachers have misconceptions about computational thinking, we wanted to emphasize that it is not about computers, and coding or programming itself is not computational thinking. Okay, these are just tools or means to help us create solutions after we have applied computational thinking. Okay, so during our sharing, we made an attempt to apply computational thinking to a very common daily activity for teachers, I think, okay, which is coffee making. Okay, though I did get a casual remark why we make coffee making so complicated. Okay, so by applying decomposition to coffee making, we can break it down to various components like which coffee powder to use, whether to add creamer, milk or sugar, or even like which cup to use. Okay, then for pattern recognition, we consider the similarities and differences of coffee found in coffee shops, and the teachers were asked to consider if the drink is changed to tea instead. Okay, how would the solution or steps change? Then for abstraction, we got the teachers to suggest what are the irrelevant details to coffee making. Then some of them suggested things like brands or the origins of coffee powders, because what is essential in coffee making is actually the powder itself and water. Okay, lastly, to illustrate algorithmic thinking, we got the teachers to suggest steps or route they will take in the pantry to make their coffee. So as you see from the diagram there, while each individual had their own preference of whether to add sugar or creamer or not, steps like taking the cup must be done first. So there is a certain sequence that needs to be followed. Okay, then we move on to other examples in our daily life, such as like wearing clothes, dancing, and cooking. So when you're choosing what to wear, you will draw experience or like recognize pattern from your past experience to see whether that piece of clothing is suitable for today's weather or whether it's suitable for your activity. And unless you want to be Superman or a fashionista, the sequence to wear your clothes will be quite important. Okay, then for dancing, choreography of most dancers is actually a sequence of movement. So if you want to learn it, it would be best to break it down into short segments. And depending on the learner's ability, sometimes you have to just focus on the hands or legs movement. And lastly, if you out there enjoy cooking like enjoy cooking or watch MasterChef like I do, okay, then you will know like making a complete dish comes with various components, and the steps to make each component needs to be strictly followed sometimes. Okay, so after covering this, I will pass it on to Eliza to talk about the rest of the activities we have done.
Hi everyone, I'm Eliza. So for this activity, right, the teachers are actually separated into their breakout rooms. So what happened is a team was given and the game master was given a word, and the rest of the teachers were to ask questions. So by building on each other's question, the teachers will be able to pattern recognize among all the possible answers based on similarities and ask questions to distinguish whether these answers are correct and based on their differences also. Then they will also be able to break down the game into different necessary steps. Finally, they will analyze the answers, the possible answers. Then they will give the answers to the game master. So when they are questioning, we hope that this is part of algorithmic thinking. And the next part we did with the teachers, right, was to give them an example on how we can use CT while going through a process like a prototyping process. So we started by telling them that when we are designing a problem or there is a prototyping, we usually have to observe and identify the problem, and through that we're actually decomposing, where we analyze problem statement and break it down to issues that need to be addressed. And also, right, if you look at ideating, we also need to break down the parts for the prototype to be built. So these are part of decomposition. And when we are doing pattern recognition, right, during the construction stage, we also ask them to think about, identify the pattern in user behavior or the environment. These are like the little issues that need to be recognized. Also, during ideation, when they do product identification, where they identify features in similar product in the market, that is also part of pattern recognition. In terms of abstraction, we hope that they can identify features that are critical to the prototype, and after that, right, they can be able to solve the issues. So that is part of abstraction. That we hope that the teachers can see the relevance between prototyping and computational thinking. The next activity, right, was breakout room also, where we give teachers time to look into their own ALP program, and they have to be able to identify factors of computation thinking or possible areas in which CT could be incorporated into the ALP program. We have very interesting feedback, like response 1 and 3. We could see that these examples, the teachers are trying to use CT in coding, which is what everyone has been talking about. But for example 2, if you can read it, the teachers actually was trying to use CT, right, to design and build a solar car, whereby the pattern recognition, right, was to take apart and to compare the different features in the solar car. And also, right, in pattern recognition, right, they want to identify different features in recognition of how they can make a car fast or slow. And in terms of algorithmic thinking, was to take steps to build a solar car. So I think this is an interesting use of CT in design and build. So in totality, despite the short time given to the teachers, they were able to bring out concepts of CT. I feel that this is a very interesting activity because it also gives them time to look into their ALP program and trying to incorporate it into their lessons. So ultimately, right, we are trying to let the teachers know that awareness of CT is very important, and there's a possibility of using them in their ALP program despite it being something that is unknown, but they can slowly try to incorporate them. In terms of feedback from the participant, for this run, we actually, if you look at our size and our teachers' numbers, it's actually relatively small. So that and so Zihui and I actually had this time to be able to interact with the teachers, as well as have an in-depth discussion with all the participants. So from the feedback, we can feel that it's positive. Throughout the whole session, right, it did give the teachers an idea of what CT is and some of the possible implementation of CT in the classroom or in the ALP program. So we were very heartened to see that teachers are actually not saying that they are totally against it, but they may have to take some time and more seminars or breakdown for courses from all parties, right, to give them the encouragement to continue to break down CTs into their classrooms. So coming up, what's next? We are still in the midst of discussing with our CPTD partners, because this is our first run of how we can introduce CT to non-computing teachers, especially in our ARP schools. So we hope that we can continue to provide elements of CT and continue to provide support to teachers on how they can integrate CTs into their ALP. Apart from that, we will be also looking at details and provide analogy for possible application in various ways. So in terms of if you want to find people to work with, or any possible collaboration, you can look for Zihui or myself. And this is our sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much. Ms. Z and Ms. Sen from Science Center. So that gives us a fresh and different perspective of CT. Right. So our next presenter originally was actually from O-level computing, but he actually has another school commitment, even though it's a school holiday. Right. But he has kindly shared the slides and video. Right. So at your own time, please feel free to learn how Mr. Lee Chuan from O-level computing has applied CT in St. Patrick, right? So over time, the slides and videos will be shared, and for example, you also have the slides here from Ms. Madam Azina already. So we will move on quickly to the last speaker, which is Ms. Liu Weiling, who will share about how CT is infused in junior JPJC A-level computing. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks, Mr. Gee. Let me share my screen. Okay, good afternoon to all. I would like to thank Prof. Louis for the invitation. I'm super excited to share the key pedagogies my colleagues and I have implemented at JPJC. Let me aim to complete my segment in 10 minutes. Okay, so give me a moment. All right. It is inevitable that, when we're in a class of over 20 students, we will see diversity in the classroom. And each student has his or her own set of strengths, interests, or learning styles. So for us to get to know our students better, at the first lesson, we'll get students to answer a survey. And it's interesting to note that about 20% of students, they choose computing because they want to avoid taking chemistry. And at JPJC, in line with the nation's call to promote computational thinking, we do not have a selection process. That is why a large portion of our students, they come with no prior knowledge. And this proves to be a steep learning curve for our students in the beginning. So we support the learning of the diverse learners through two approaches. First is to differentiate the instructions through the content, process, product, as well as to promote the joy of learning so that the students can be self-directed and they will persevere when they face frustrations, during problem solving. We also observe that students who are demotivated usually have little or no interest in the subject. So to enable us to employ differentiated instructions and to promote joy of learning, we use ICT tools and platforms. We have introduced gamification as well as blended learning. So first, the use of ICT tools and platforms. So students, we publish, so for us, we publish our assignments on cosmology, and students will submit their programs for auto-grading based on the test cases that we created. As you can see, we have different categories for the assignments. So for the missions, that's where all students are expected to complete because that's the baseline expectations. For the bonus quests, it's more targeted for the advanced learners because they consist higher order thinking questions. And the additional problems, those are for the students who are in the programming clinics. However, it is important to note that for cosmology, it only checks the expected output with the actual output. So it doesn't check the correctness of the algorithm. For example, a student may code a linear search algorithm when the question requires a binary search. That is why it's important for us to peruse the code and give customized feedback where needed. You can see on the right, okay, there's also a text box feature for students to enter questions. And then, yeah, we will answer the questions. We are also able to monitor the submissions real time, so that's very helpful. And for us, we also created videos to support our students' learning during their revision for selected topics, which may prove a little more challenging for them. Okay, the second tool is gamification. So first, cosmology has experiential points, and that motivates students to solve the questions before the deadline because they will get the points. And at the end of each semester, we award the top 2 coders as well as the 2 coders with the most significant improvement. Students also enjoy game-based learning. For selected topics, we have Kahoot quizzes. And each semester, we also hold the tag team programming. So students will group in threes. Okay, so it's mixed abilities. And then the role of the programmer was rotated every 3 minutes. So the other 2 members, okay, they are navigators and they aren't supposed to code. The team that solves the problem fastest, yeah, will win. You can see, okay, we have a timer. So every 3 minutes, the alarm will ring, and then the groupings are written on the board as well. To extend the learning for tag team programming, we get the teams to analyze the efficiencies of one another's code and suggest areas for improvement. We also use SLS. So in addition to cosmology, we do use SLS. We publish like e-learning packages for asynchronous learning. For example, over a weekend, students are expected to complete e-learning on Introduction to Stack, where they will read the overview of the data structure, then they will watch videos with animations and answer short exercises. When we meet each other synchronously in school, then we will go through the common misconceptions. Okay, next for blended learning, we have class-based projects. For JC2 students, they are asked to work in pairs. So they will design a normalized database and then implement it using SQL. And then they will code the web application using HTML and Flask, which connects to the database server. The code is uploaded to GitHub and then deployed using Heroku. So instead of just running the applications on local host, it's more exciting for students to see their web applications on their mobile devices. And because the code is uploaded to GitHub, it's open source, and this also promotes cooperative learning between the students. So you can see a couple of screenshots taken from the submissions. Okay, recently, I think this is quite interesting because recently we tried station rotation during one of our lessons for the Q data structure. So this is a modified station rotation to engage students and then apply differentiated learning. We designed 3 stations and the mode of learning in each station was different. So this allowed the students to experience a different process when they move from one station to another. So the students were grouped beforehand based on their readiness for the lesson. So you can see the group 1 are the more advanced students who are very ready. And then we have group 3 who are the less advanced students who are future ready. So for station 1, is the practical station where the students are tasked to solve a programming question. Then station 2 is the written station where we give them worksheets. And then station 3 is the teacher-led station for discussion. So for this station rotation, we do recommend having 2 teachers because, for example, stations 1 and 2, they were held in Computer Lab 4. And then Mr. Clement Ng, my colleague, yeah, he was there. And then for myself, I was in station 5 to conduct the teacher-led discussion. Let's talk about differentiating the content and outcome. Okay, so at the station 1, the programming station, students had to solve the mission that is published on cosmology. And to support their problem solving, there is a brief introduction to the Q data structure as well. And we scaffold the problem because there are 2 subtasks. So for the first task is very guided. They have to translate what is given in the specification into a Python program. And it's very similar to what they did for the stack data structure in the previous lessons. Then the second question, okay, it's targeted for the more advanced students from group 1 who are probably able to solve the first question within 20 minutes. So it's less guided and it's something different. They have to analyze the diagram to be able to problem solve. Then for station 2, the written station, we have a worksheet and also 2 questions. So the first question, it's scaffolded because it's basically fill in the blanks, so it's guided. Then the second question, okay, it's less guided. Again, it's targeted more for the more advanced students. For station 3, which is the teacher-led discussion facilitated by me, for example, group 3. So for the future ready students for group 3, I actually started with the fundamentals of Q data structure. I went through examples of operations performed to a simple linear queue, and I also shared the descriptive algorithm for the methods. This is to allow them, to enable them to proceed to the next programming station and not get stuck while they're trying to solve the problems there. And I assess the students. So for the teacher-led assessment, teacher-led discussion portion, I also conducted oral assessment. So for the group 3 students, okay, it's more to check whether they understood the first in, first out property of a Q data structure, as well as how the pointers are updated during NQ and DQ. So for group 2, I didn't start from the most basic. Instead, I started with the descriptive algorithms. I also asked this group of students why pointers are necessary. So how do we implement a Q data structure without pointers? And this is to assess that they are able to appreciate the use of pointers, because without pointers, then it's inefficient and then the elements will have to be shifted. So for group 1, the most advanced students who are the most ready, we actually discuss higher order thinking questions because for group 1 students, they would have completed the practical station as well as the written station before coming to the teacher-led discussion station. So through their experiences in the problem solving, I will ask them, okay, what are the drawbacks of a simple linear queue, to see if they can appreciate that, because the memory is not reused. And a couple of students were actually able to suggest using a circular queue instead. So for station rotation, we try to differentiate the process because the sequence, for each group is different. For example, for the first group, like I mentioned, they started with the practical station first because they are deemed the most ready. They solved the questions for stack data structure very well. And we are confident that with their prior knowledge, they will not get stuck at the programming station. And after that, they moved on to the written station, and finally, to discuss higher order thinking questions. That's the last station. For group 2, okay, they started at the written station because with the help of diagrams, they can further clarify their understanding and also strengthen their understanding as well. Because for the written worksheets, there are diagrams to guide them through the operations. Then for group 3, yeah, they will begin with the teacher-led discussion because they need probably the most guidance and scaffolding amongst their classmates. So by going through the algorithm as well as examples, hopefully when they proceed to the first station, which is the programming station, then they will not get stuck. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. So here's a summary of what I have shared, yeah, to apply differentiated learning, joy of learning, so as to enable our students, yeah, to do well and reach their full potential despite, you know, having a diverse classroom. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks very much, Ms. Yu. Yeah, so please remember that you can still engage the Q&A part through the document, right? So we are heavily overrun. so currently, yeah, we're supposed to take a break about half an hour ago. So we will take a quick 5-minute breather, and then we'll continue with the last segment, which is a panel discussion. Yeah, but in the meantime, yeah, while we are taking a break, please also check out some of the Q&A documents and continue to engage the speakers. Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back at around 4:35. Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, please also feel free to unmute yourself and ask. And this can also be a networking time. Okay, so there's another speaker, Prof Leong Hon Wai, and of course from NIE, Ms. Wendy Huang, who will be helming most of the panel discussion. We also invite our previous speakers to join in. Okay, so it's 4:35. So yeah, so we will continue with the last segment, which is a panel discussion on the theme, what support and resources do teachers need to promote computational thinking education in Singapore, right? So when NIE first hosted the 5th International Computational Thinking Education and STEM Conference in June this year, one of the findings was that we realized that the level of awareness of computational thinking education in Singapore is still relatively low compared to other countries, right? And but is something that we will need to start. So we would like to invite Ms. Wendy Huang first to guide us through how to engage a discussion on how computational thinking education promotion. Yeah. Ms. Huang?
Yes, hi everybody. Okay, so I'm actually going to share some things with you to invite you to participate, okay? Because I know so far people have been just sort of sitting back and listening, right? So now this is your chance to participate. Okay, so let me share my screen with you, but I'm also going to share a link to this slide so that you can join in. So not just watch the presentation, but actually be part of the presentation. All right, so here we go. Let me find the Zoom. Okay, so here is, where is the chat? Chat window. Can't find the chat window.
Do you see at the top, sorry, bottom menu?
Okay.
It's under more. It's under more. There's a chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's now under more. Mine is a different place. Okay. All right. So can everybody go to that link? We'll see how many people that that Google Docs can have at one time, which should be more than enough. All right. Okay, so like I said, this is interactive. So we're going to go to this slide, and you're going to find that there's a bunch of smiley faces that you can drag to the one that best describes your role. Okay, so let's see. So this is more of a warm-up to make sure that you understand how to interact with the slides. And it'll give you a sense of who's here. And there should be enough but if not, we'll just make a few more copies. Make as many copies as we need. Okay, so I see a lot of computing teachers here. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And you can feel free to continue to work on that. Okay, so now if we move on to the next slide, we can. There's a bunch of post-it notes here, which you can type in. So what kind of support do you need when teaching CT? And you are feel free to drag these out and type in them. Now, the stars for you to paste on the ones that you feel like you agree with, or you want to sort of vote for. So for example, you need time, right, in the school day. Oh, hang on, let me make sure these are put on top. So that way you can make sure that these stars don't get hidden. And oh, and there's 2 slides, so you're welcome to go to the next slide if you're there's not enough space here, which I can see we're running out of space real quick. Make some more copies. But yeah, go to the next slide if you're running out of, since we seem to be running out of space.
Good problem to have.
I know, right? But it does give us a sense of what issues are that people need. Yeah. And hopefully we will be able to help each other out and in providing some answers later on. Yeah. And of course our panelists can share their thoughts and their resources. I hope some of you are changing the shape of the stars. That's adorable. So like I said, the next there's more space on slide 4 if you want to put some stuff here too. You guys see that more resources seems to be a common theme. I think something else too, sort of, yeah, assessment. Yeah. Okay, there's some more here. The next one, how do you integrate CT with maths? And I think that's true for, like different subjects, right? Not just math, but, what about the sciences and so on, okay? So thank you for that question. Okay, it looks like things are slowing down a bit. Okay, so these are some of the resources that I have found. So we're going to move on to slide 5. Now, a number of them are for teaching computing, but not all. Okay, so I made these little things. Okay, so that you can use to paste over the resources that you know about. Okay, so we can kind of see which ones have been popularly used or that people are aware of, and you'll notice that each of these are actually linked to a website that describes those resources. And I'm going to actually show you some of this. So this is the part where I'm going to be talking for a bit. Okay, but then let's have you paste some of these on and see what people know about. And of course, feel free to continue doing any of the earlier ones as well. Yeah, because all of this we may not be able to answer in this presentation, but it will give us a sense of what the needs are, so to help us plan for future events. So thank you so much, everybody, for your involvement. Just make some more copies.
Wendy, could you also add in the UKCAS computing at school?
Okay. UKCUS.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, there's a space over here in slide 6.
Okay.
So we can send this for everybody, right?
Okay.
To type in. Yeah.
I
so like I said, these are just the ones that I did my own research on. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And of course, everybody can fill it in.
So maybe I'll type something on there.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, everybody can participate in that. Okay, so I think that, oh wow, Bebras is there's quite a few there, and Unplugged. That's great. Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna show you some of the, okay, are people able to see my screen still? Does that just say CSTA?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So you can continue working on the slides, but I'm just going to talk through some of these resources. Okay, so we are all familiar. It looks like many of us are familiar with Bebras. So these are again they are kind of like puzzles, right? That, like, for instance, this one is about students have to look at true and false kinds of statements, but it's kind of done in using this kind of problem. And then we have the AI for K-12, which is, I really like this one because it has this 5 big ideas. So it gives you a real sense of not just activities, but what are the ideas behind these activities that are worth learning about. Teaching London Computing has many more unplugged type of activities, and you'll see here that they have a mixed subjects. So, so you look at computer science and math, and computer science and biology, even computer science philosophy. I don't know what's there, but definitely feel free to check it out. Here are some activities on CT and STEM. And these have actual lesson plans. Okay, so this might be a useful resource for those of you who are looking for kind of ready-made type of activities. Okay, IST provides a repository of, I think there's 141 lesson plans. So across different grade levels, subjects, like here's one, for example, that looking at math and Python. Okay, so this is a search place. The computer science field guide was created by, I think, Tim Bell and some other folks down in New Zealand. So it's a great supplement for teaching computing, and it's interactive, and so yeah, so students can use this to revise topics that they are learning about in computing. Teach Computing is from UK. And this one has and this is where you get those key stages. I believe one of the speakers mentioned earlier, and you can choose resources according to the key stage. So these are different topics and and lessons to go with those. So here you can see something in music. Okay, this is some of the materials from the US. So in the US, there's an organization for computer science teachers. This is one of their newsletters, and it just sort of gives you interesting, information about what's going on in computer science education. Yes, Unplugged, many of you are familiar with this. You can get ready-made unplugged activities here. Okay, another thing with the CSTA, it is the membership is free at the basic level, and it gives you access to a public community. So some of you are talking about, how do I get connected to other people? So this is their public forum, and as you can see, there's a number of topics, like if you're interested in cybersecurity, teaching databases, here's some materials for younger grades, and so on. Okay, so so here you can sort of interact with other people, again, mostly in the US. All right, I just want to point out one thing that I saw on the CSTA website. So this was from one of their articles, and it's about the importance of the humanities, right, in teaching computer science. We often think of it as a very technical subject, and here, this is a very, an article that talks about the importance of teaching ethics, some of the concerns that computing teachers may have, like, oh, I don't know how to do this isn't part of my curriculum, and so on, right? Where do I get resources? And so here you are, here's some resources, okay? Some reading, some lesson plans, and so on, okay? So, so I guess I point this out just to say that, these resources are out there, and it's good to be part of associations and organizations that are already putting together these types of resources and are updating them constantly. Okay. All right, so let's move back to the slides, and I just want to see where we are at now. Okay, so thank you again for putting your for engaging with us. And here we have yeah, that's great. Okay, so people already putting in their own teaching resources. And another thing you can put in here are just also events. Okay, so many of the organizations have annual conferences or meetings, and those might be ones that might be interested. And some of them are being done virtually now, right, with COVID, so it makes it a bit easier to attend. Okay, so yeah, continue to sort of fill these in. And so I just want to give give time to Prof Leong to maybe share some of his thoughts, right? Because I know we're running a bit low on time, but we're going to keep this open and active, and you can come back here and fill in more of these slides as you think of it, and really let this be a resource for all of us. Yeah. So yep.
Yeah, we'll next invite Prof Leong Hon Wai from NUS Computing. I think for most of us, he needs no introduction. So he's one of the pioneer of computer education and CT in Singapore. Yeah, so we will let him take the stage for now. Thanks.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Mr. Gee. Okay, I always call him a big boss. Okay, so can I share screen? Okay, all right. So let me share. In fact, I will just share the desktop so you can see. Okay, all right. Okay, I think I was going to gather resources, and then I found that yesterday I found that Wendy is doing a great job with it already, and so instead I put a challenge to myself to speak about a slightly different but very related topic. Okay, so I want to sort of lift the discussion up a little bit. Okay, instead of looking at the nitty-gritty of each of the resources, I think I listened to all the talks that have been given today. It always amazes me how resourceful our teachers are in Singapore. Without the help of a well-defined curriculum, okay, recognized, well-developed curriculum, without the help of a lot of other resources, nonetheless they have persevered. Some of them developed their own custom curriculum and so on. So I'm always amazed with that. But I want to talk a little bit about how we can move forward. Okay, so if you bear with me, actually, 2 years ago I was at that event, so I probably met quite a number of you, but I also see some new faces when I look through the participants list. Okay, so Mr. Gee is not true that they will know me, so I'm this unknown guy. Okay, all right. Okay, let me come back. Okay, all right. So I first need to do a disclaimer. These are my personal view because I'm not trained as an educator. One of these thing about university professors is when they hire a professor, they think that they are immediately teachers, not necessarily so. Okay, so I just learn as I go, try to improve, try to share a little bit. So please excuse the the novice claim I make in this talk. But nonetheless, after seeing the great work done already, so I thought I'd start with slightly different things. So these slides are fresh off the, so what I did last night and today. Okay, so I'd like to thank Aslina for this very nice start now. Okay, thing. So what is the dream start now? Okay, if you have to imagine Singapore doing very well in CT, education, CT promotion and all that, what is our dream wish list? And I put down my own dream wish list. Okay, I wish that we have many CT experts at all levels. Okay, to mentor the CT teachers, to develop relevant CT curriculum relevant for Singapore. Okay, to evangelize CT to principal key personnel. Oh, by the way, can you hear me? Generally, okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and I wish we have many CS graduate teachers, like Mr. Gee. Okay, how many CS grad teachers can you name from this group here? Okay, I see that many of them are teachers teaching majoring in other subjects, but converted to CS teachers. Okay, so I wish there were many CS grad teachers. Okay, or short of that, CS or CT certified teachers. Okay. Now in UK and in many other countries, before you can teach computer science or CT or CPA, you need to be certified. That means you have to clock in a number of courses and so on. And I think that is important to give confidence to the teachers. I may run out of time, so I have to speak very fast. Mr. Gee gave me 10 minutes or 10 to 15. Okay, so okay, but I wish that this is wish list we have, and there are many of these CT teachers developed to become coaches, mentors for other incoming teachers. Okay, not many coaches around like Kelvin and Mr. Gee. Okay, and several others. Okay, all right. I joined in the forum. Okay, with them, and I always see new teachers being very worried about their answers. When posed by the students. Okay, and I also wish that there are rich resources to support teachers that are locally produced or at least curated so that they are relevant for local information. There are a lot of resources out there, but for a new teacher, which is the right one? How do I go find it? And all that becomes it. So I wish. Okay, and I'll come back to that point a little later on. Okay, all right. This is the real situation in Singapore. We really need a lot of CT experts at all levels. We don't have enough. We don't have enough in the school. We don't have enough in MOE to advise MOE on where should we going. Okay, how should we be doing? Are we doing okay? Okay, we need CS professors. I'm not sure if there are many other professors like Professor Louis. But of course, Professor Louis' job is to do that. My job is not. Okay, I'm actually this strange stranger coming in to talk about CT and all that in schools and so on. Okay, all right. But nonetheless, okay, we need more. We need many more grad teachers. Okay, we have very few. I taught computer science in Singapore for 34 years. I still cannot fill up with these 10 fingers the number of my former students who are now teachers. So less than one per year. Per cohort. Okay, so nonetheless, we don't have enough. We need more. We need more teachers. We don't even have a real certification program yet. I'm not sure whether we have or not. Correct me if I'm wrong. I hope to be proven wrong. Okay, we need more coaches and mentors. In other words, teachers who have gone out there, work and coach the new teachers, and be mentors for us, like Mr. Gee. Okay, right. For example, we need everyone here knows Mr. Gee. Okay, and they all call him, okay, or Mr. G, okay, whatever how you pronounce, but they know him, okay. And we need more resources, as I said, locally produced or locally curated, okay, locally curated, so that you can say for level 3, for P3, we do this, okay, all right. So let me backtrack a little bit and talk about teaching and learning. How do we all do that? Okay, my own personal journey, I think, is, we first become aware. I become aware, okay, and then you experience it, you practice it, and then you gain knowledge and skill, and over time you develop expertise. Okay, now in order to teach CT, we really need to be either on this end of the spectrum rather than on that end. If you start teaching CT, if you are still on that end, then I can understand why you feel nervous. Okay, and you look at the question, you're not sure about your answer. Now you look at math teachers, they don't have this worry because they are down here. Okay, our computing teacher, I cannot know how many of them can say they are at this level. I wish more of them will be. Okay, that's my wish. Okay, take nothing back away from our computing teacher. I'm very impressed with what they're doing. Okay, all right. But then after that, after you learn, this is a personal journey. Then you learn, you become teacher. How do you become teacher? You teach, right? And then after you teach, you share, like what we are doing now. Okay, today we are doing sharing. Okay, then over time you learn to become coaches. Okay, all right, and you start to mentor people. Okay, and in that journey, you see, we are doing well in Singapore. We are doing well in many subjects, math, sciences, any subject you pick up. We have teachers who are at this level, at this level, at that level. Okay, we even have a group of people who are expert teachers who can be deployed to train other teachers. Okay, or to work with other teachers, coach them, and all that thing. Okay, right? What do we have in CT at the moment? In this thing, we don't have that many. Okay. All right, so we are lacking. This area is lacking. Yet this is an area that our country say is the future. Okay, so there is a dilemma. Okay, now let's look at resources. We are talking resources. Okay, thanks Wendy for putting together a very good set of this. I look at it, I say, wow, she covered almost everything already. Okay, all right. Okay, so we look at that same journey again, right? So you go attend talks. How do you get? You get awareness, okay? And through courses, you practice, and then you develop expertise over time. Okay? And these are the resources we need. That people come to know about this, then they take courses, okay? And they need material. So okay, as you teach, you use at the beginning you use available resources, and that's why teachers are clamoring. Okay, I need resource. How do we find? Okay, but you see, over time, if you start doing that, you start to share. I'm glad many of the teachers are sharing. Okay, because then other teachers get to know. Okay, but actually, we need more people that are in that later part, which are the people who are confident and they can develop. And this is my hope. This is my wish list that, we have enough people who can develop this. Okay, and finally, mentoring. Okay, they can go to the ASP in the MOE and become, ASP for computing teachers. Okay, these are the respected teachers who have, very good at their trade and mentoring this. Okay, this is my wish list. Okay, we already have this for all the other subjects. We just do not have that for computational thinking. Okay. Oh, sorry, this shouldn't be. Okay. All right. We don't have enough resources. Okay. So in Singapore, where is the training? Where to take courses so that you can become trained up as computing teachers, and then later on, computing teachers teaching other subjects, related to. Okay. So we have a severe lack of people who are trained, or training courses and things like that in this area. Okay, so at the moment we cannot, for example, it'd be great if in this list or in my list, I can say, take these few courses from these places. That will be fantastic. Then teachers can go and take them. Okay, all right, we don't have that in Singapore. Okay, even worse, how to teach CT across curriculum. We have a severe lack of this thing. Okay, how to teach. Okay, and we always have to refer to other places to look for this material. Okay, now at the very least, we could have teachers put them together, put it as a resource, and say, Singapore, this is a list of things you want to do CT, and for example, I think just now Wendy mentioned, and philosophy, for example, right? Okay, these are the things. Okay, or any other subjects. Okay, in arts, in English, and so on. And they are, okay, all right. Also age appropriate. I'm glad that many of the teachers presented really age appropriate computational thinking. Okay, not all CT lessons is about coding. Okay, coding comes at the later part. Okay, Okay, how do teachers code at the moment? Okay, well, you've heard it now. Our SOP, not SOP, SOH. Okay, a source of help now come from commercial vendors. Okay, it's good. At the same time, I also question. By doing so, we defer curriculum to the vendors also. Okay, that's a question we need to ask. Okay, all right. Should the vendors be developing curriculum, or should some other body be developing curriculum? Okay, all right. Now in Singapore, okay, NIE, you go to, is the de facto place to be trained as a teacher, and they do research and education. Okay, so it's very good because we have a one-stop shop where everything can be done. At the moment, CT, computer science, CT, okay, computing, not yet a major subject. Okay, you can major in math, this, that, and so on, but not yet computing. Okay, I hope that will be, again, I hope to be proven wrong. Maybe, okay, last night, okay, somebody announced that CS will be a major available in NIE. That will be great. Okay, all right. The broader picture, in fact, NIE NTU is the only local university that has a school, okay, or faculty of education. We don't have. You look at any major US university, there is a faculty. In the US, there's a school of education. And they do education research, and they also train teachers in all subjects, even some of them, okay, computing, stational thinking, or CS, okay, or computing, okay. We don't have that yet. In the UK also, okay, I'll come to that later, okay. All right, very quickly, okay, because this reminds me of an old sharing I did, okay, 21/6, and I took the cover page from that, okay. All right, okay, this was September, so around the same time, okay, 5 years ago, okay, I gave this talk. Okay, I think maybe some of the teachers were there. Mr. Gee, I can remember, of course, always there. Okay, all right. Okay, so and there I mentioned already that 2013. Okay, 2016 was a pivotal year. I designed a course on computational thinking in NUS, and I taught that. Okay, and I thought since I'm going to do that, I might as well spend some time, okay, evangelizing CT. Okay, so I gave that talk, and I remember, okay, I shared that UK, okay, took the full. They jump in lock, stock, and barrel. Okay, computing for K to 12. Okay, and that's where you heard just now K stage 1, K stage 2, and so on. Okay, all right, and they done that. Okay, and okay, they have all the levels. These are age appropriate activity, and what is the key learning objective that have to be achieved, and things like that at all levels. Okay, all right, all these things. But one thing I chose this slide because look at this thing. This is what they have to support help, support, training, certification for teachers in computing. You look at all these red dots. Each dot represents a region, okay, a region, okay? And each of these regional center, okay, is a university, okay? And you can get help, support, and so on. And all of them teachers, okay, computing as a course teacher can take, and you can choose and pick a set of courses, enough courses, you will be certified as a computing teacher. See, we don't have that here. Okay, so there's a list of courses at every university, so that if you're teaching somewhere here, you can go to the nearest university. Or if you prefer, they have another university that is very famous in some course, you can go there, okay, and take. And if you take enough, you will have. And I think this is the level of support and resources that is available. Okay, all right. And also, okay, I mentioned computing at school because they also mentioned that, okay, there is a community, okay, just like CSDA and so on. Okay, each of them were, you can sign up as a teacher. Okay, you don't have to be a teacher in the UK because I signed up. I put my name in busybody. I signed up and they accepted me. I got into the discussion and so on. Okay, so you can, as a teacher in Singapore, you can also join them and then learn through this. Okay, and they have. I remember I talked to some of them. Okay, I help support. Okay. So basically, we need more experts. Okay, we need expertise at this level. We need more teachers to develop. Okay, more of these things at this level. Okay, all right. And of course, we need the resources. Okay, and the expert. Okay, I want to quote one slide from Mouse Perry in the conference CTE that was mentioned by Mr. Gee and by Wendy that happened just earlier this June. Okay, Mouse gave a talk, and I remember this slide very well. Okay, so I picked up this slide. He says expert differs from novices not only to the extent of their domain knowledge, okay, but also in how this knowledge is organized. Okay, all right. And so when the knowledge is well structured and well organized, then they can take on new things that come along, and they will be put into their nice structure. So once you become an expert, you can pick up new things much more easily. If you are still a novice, every new thing is some new thing, and you are trying to learn, memorize, and all that thing. And we need them. We need them because this will become the coaches, okay, and will be the expert panel in this, and we don't have enough. Okay, so because I need to talk about the second part, promoting, right? Promoting. Okay, how do we promote? Okay, actually, I've been trying to promote. It is always a hard battle because I talk to the teachers, they're willing and so on. But I realized that one thing, you need to convince the principal, or at least the key personnel. I'm glad today you saw two talks by MJS and Montfort Secondary, okay, and MSS, okay, all right. To talk. Just now, the principal Wilbur of Montfort Primary was also present in the conference, in this conference, okay, and they have support from the top. The top believe computational thinking is important. In fact, Wilbur, when I mentioned Maker Faire to him, I knew Wilbur, okay, through some other introduction. When I mentioned Maker Faire in San Francisco, okay, some years ago, he said, okay, I'll take my team of teachers to go there and learn about Maker. Invited me to go along. Unfortunately, I couldn't, my time schedule could not allow that trip, okay? All right. So this is the support. And once you have support from the top, it is much easier to make things done. So I was giving some talks to some key personnel in schools and so on. We need more experts to go and talk to key personnel in the school, convince them it is good. Then the support will come for the teachers. You see, to me, the support of teacher, although all these resources are important, but to me, the most important one is support from the top. Your boss thinks that you're doing good things, number one. And number two, they need to give you time. Time to go learn, practice, and be trained. And I think this is in short supply. So one of the reasons why I started talking to key personnel in school is because I want to address, okay, this part. You have to have buy-in from the key personnel, okay? All right. So that's the end of my talk. But I do want to at least say one thing about, okay, just now, Wendy mentioned CS Unplugged, okay, and in there you see Tim Bell, okay, mentioned, okay, and my other friend Mike Fellows, okay, all right, and one of the activities that we did, this is Mike Fellows, okay, all right, when we were in Australia, okay, this is a conference 2013, and I wanted to show a picture of Tim Bell. That is Tim Bell over there, okay, we were staying in the same quote-unquote dormitory, okay, and okay, this is after the conference. Sorry, this is Tim. I got the wrong person. This Matt Moss. Okay, all right, okay, all right. And so these are all people who are expert in the area. They are fully invested in it, and they spend all the time doing this. Okay, I'm doing CT as a part-time job, as a non-appreciated part-time job in my university. Okay, so okay. That's me. Okay, Ken. All right. I think I want to stop share now. Okay. Thank you very much. I hope. Okay. I've said enough. Okay. All right. But to me, I wanted to address the more important part. How do CT teachers get support from the top first so that they can do this thing and they can. I'm glad all the teachers who shared have that support from their school. But we need more schools. Okay. In other words, the people here. We are really talking to the choir already. They already are in. What we need is to have more school to come in, more principal to believe this is the right thing to do, and that okay, we should support the teachers who are willing to go out and try. Okay, that's why I say we don't have a full curriculum, we don't have this, but yet despite all of this, all those who presented found their own way to develop. Okay, and I hope more of this okay will happen. Okay, so. Okay, let me stop share. Okay, and okay, send you back. Okay.
Hey, thanks very much, Prof Leong.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have heard from the real guru and pioneer of CT. So we would like to actually open up to the floor. We know that time is already running short. It's 5:10. So maybe let's spend the last 5 minutes. We aim to stop at 5:15. Right, but I would like to invite. Questions from the floor, right? Especially that we have a more diverse audience this round, right? We started CTFest with only computing teachers, and today we have expanded to primary schools and even SAM ARP, as well as there are some international participants as well, right? So maybe we can take about 2 to 3 questions, right, from anyone.
Okay, while they are thinking about questions, let me answer 1 or 2 that have already okay come in through the form. Okay, so and I first mentioned that okay, how do you teach computational thinking with math? How do you teach computational thinking in with makerspace and things like that, or in other subjects, etc.? To some extent, those questions are answered. Otherwise, I think once Wendy shared out the resource and you can look at them, okay, then they have been answered. More or less, you need to just find the correct okay place to look for some resources over there. Okay, so the other part I think mentioned about creativity in CT and so on. Yes, many of the CT activity, and in that regard, I like to suggest looking at Bebras and looking at also CS Unplugged type activities. Those are great resources of creative things that and the students really love those activities. Okay, and they do what I call indirect learning. They are playing the game and playing all this fun, just like gamification that is mentioned by Wei Ling just now and the other people. Okay, they all do indirect learning. They think that they're playing a game, but I wish that the teacher would spend the last minute to reflect and tell them, while you're playing this game, you're actually learning this thing and this thing and this thing. Okay, here we did decomposition, here we did abstraction, here we did all that. Okay, reinforce that particular message, and then student will come to realize that how come I see the word decomposition when I see math and I do arts and I do all these things, and then it will become what we call a transferable skill, and they can then recognize, hey, that is decomposition. I see that in history, in geography, and so on, things like that. Okay, all right. So I hope that will answer those questions they asked. People who ask questions, and quite a number of them as I scroll down ask questions like that. Okay, all right.
Yep. So yeah, thanks very much. So actually, there is also one question from the registration. I guess there are quite a number of math teachers in this group. Right, some of the computing teachers are also math teachers, right? So they were asking whether there are some specific resources in math for CT. Okay, so initially, when we organized this CTFest, we actually also reached out to CPDD, the math unit, and at that time, it was included as one of the speakers, right? But I think what they have is they are going to have a math seminar. There's a CT in math series, right, or something that along that night. They will be, I think, around end of the year, October, November, and that is where they will specifically address some of these CT resources and issues in the subject. They do encourage all the math teachers to attend. Right? So for that reason, they feel that this may not be the best platform because otherwise they'll be duplicating their sharing. Right? So please look forward to that. And also for the rest of the participants who are not computing teachers, this round from the registration, we noticed that probably about half of them are not from CPA or computing. Right? So we do. Okay. So sometimes I just wanted to quickly share this screen that was actually part of Mr. Wiswan's from Sapentric's presentation. He took it from Mr. Mossberry. So even sometimes us computing teachers, we are also confused that we think that computing or coding is CT, but actually it's not totally, right? So we also hope to encourage non-computing teachers, whether you are in primary school, secondary school, or at any level, or across different subjects, that CT is really part of problem solving that can apply to any subject, right? So it transcends coding. So please do reach out more and hopefully attend some of our outreach events. So going forward, this CTFest, we hope that it will be an annual event. We are still deciding on the timing, getting feedback from the different schools and stakeholders, and hopefully it will become the Singapore version of a CT get together across different subjects, like not only computing.
I want to interject here a little bit, okay? You know, NUS, I teach computational thinking course, okay? And in parentheses, I said no coding. Okay, so, and the course is available to students in any major. So I have students in arts, in FASS arts, okay, in science, okay, in many disciplines, okay. And the no coding part, okay, help allay the fears of those people who are scared of coding, okay. But computational thinking can be taught as a full-fledged course. In fact, some of them like it so much, they say, okay, you know, in this course, I developed algorithm, okay, by writing pseudocode. Okay, and the only thing stopping me from turning all these things that I've done into a computer program or a software is to learn coding. And so they, on their own, went to pick up. I know, of course, we suggested maybe they take a CS 1010, one of our basic computing courses to take. Okay, so I think CT definitely do not always equal coding. And in fact, this is one of the key messages that I want to set across in my course. Okay, that you can learn. It's a thinking skill. And having that thinking skill, of course, you know, when you combine that with programming, you can turn it into software. Okay, but you don't need software. You don't know to be always doing coding to be. Okay? In fact, some of them say that having learned algorithm allow them to apply it to their own life and improve their own decision making. Okay.
Yeah.
No coding involved.
Yeah. Can I just also add something about that? I do think that it's important to say that it's not computational thinking should be applied to computational problems, okay? Because, you know, like you saw in the diagram before, right? You see that computational thinking is a subset of problem solving. That's so right. It's not, you know, it's a way to approach a problem in a computational way. So I think we need to also think about, you know, what are the characteristics of a problem that make it computational and therefore can be applied using computational thinking. So I think those are kind of some open questions, right? Because, you know, how do we know when a problem has those features and characteristics? And, you know, so I throw that out. I don't have very specific answers, but it's something for us to think about.
Wendy, your example of making coffee is a perfect example. No computation, but there is computational thinking. I also use cooking very regularly. okay, as an example of problem solving, okay, computational thinking, there's a sequence of steps to do in cooking. And when you have to cook multiple dishes, some of them can be happening in parallel. That's also another great illustration of this, okay? And when we take a recipe, the recipe is always break it down into several parts, cooking the sauce, cooking from this and this are, even in recipe book, they are written in separate segments. It's almost like, there you see decomposition. So you see, it is everywhere around us once we start. And once we tell the children to recognize this, it would be great. Sometimes I see students and they tell me, Prof, this is just decomposition, right? And that means they have just learned, okay? All right, so no matter what it is, not all problems involve computation in the sense of, calculating numbers and so on, okay?
Thank you very much. I think we will need to end this session. Right, so please keep the discussion going either through the Q&A document. There are also email addresses which are embedded in the presenters' names. So please feel free to reach out to them. Right. In closing, let's probably invite again Prof Louis to make the closing remarks. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we had a long session. I couldn't agree more with Prof Leong that the teacher sharing show that they are very resourceful. We are all agents trying to make our own way to make the teaching all these computing and computing related skills, CT related skills possible. And Prof Leong mentioned some of the systemic problems in computational thinking education. So I think when Mr. Kee joined us in NIE, we started to initiate some discussions on the teacher training piece of the puzzle. How can it come about? And part of it is the supply and demand problem. So when Prof Leong talked about we must talk to the stakeholders, I mean that will help us to generate the kind of demand for computational thinking teachers. So I think Mr. Kee has initiated some discussion in NIE. Hopefully we can take on this piece and hopefully have more things to address and announce. So that's the teacher education piece. It's a critical piece. So I want to thank everyone for coming to this session. The presenters, the panel speakers. I think it's a very productive session. Like Mr. Kee said, we hope to continue this. And what we didn't mention is this is a CTFest for teachers. We also embark on the CTFest for students. Actually, it was yesterday. We initiate some kind of coding competition for students, primary school students during this holiday. So
I heard Wendy was trying to manage like 70, 80 young, excited children, is it?
Yeah. And she handled it very well. So we're going to look at
well done, Wendy.
All the good work that the kids will come up with.
Yes, I have so much respect for the primary school teachers now. I can't imagine having to teach like this, like all the time.
Sorry, we interrupted. Chiki, please continue.
So I think, that's all. I want to thank everyone for participating, spending 2.5 hours with us. Hope it's a fruitful time, productive time with you, especially teachers in Singapore. I think we're all passionate about trying to move the computational thinking agenda forward. So hopefully more events will be arranged and we'll get in touch with each other. So thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
I think we're sending out a survey. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll send a survey through email. But if you still have time, we will also post it in the chat. So sorry, but we will follow up through email for those who have left.